Welcome to Connecting the Dots, a non-traditional legal program with your host and trusted advisor, Liz Myska, your guide through the web of life's dilemmas.
Hello, Worcester. It's attorney Liz Myska with Connecting the Dots. Today, my guest is Joe Prochilo. Yes?
Yes.
Am I correctly
are.
pronouncing it? Okay, great. And we are going to be talking about Joe in particular, but also the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and Joe's copious knowledge and experience in this area. Joe, I'd just like you to tell our viewers about yourself, and I see that you're on wheels, and if you don't mind relaying some of your story.
Oh, no, not at all. Long history on the disability front in many aspects, both hidden and non-hidden disabilities. Diabetes from the time I was age 5, was a type 1.
Insulin dependent?
Insulin dependent, yeah, type
Okay.
1 is insulin dependent. I'm paralyzed at age 10 from a virus that gradually paralyzed me over 10 days, put me in a wheelchair, no remission whatsoever. It's kind of done with, and various other things along the way, glaucoma and so forth. So, kind of like a little bit of everything, being able to survive the time. And it's, my attitude really has done me a lot in bringing myself forward, both undergraduate, graduate school, professional life.
Did you ever at any time feel despair and the tendency to want to give up or give in?
Well, people, as a rule, you decide your own fate in life. Once we're born, it's really up to us to figure out how to get from point A to point B. Okay, everything rests on our shoulders as individuals to make our way in life. Okay, so it's never been a matter of, at least with me, look at what I've lost, what I can't do. It's a matter of, okay, given what I've had, what do I do next? Okay, yes, there are challenges out there, no doubt, but everybody faces challenges. It's a matter of how you encounter them and how you go beyond that will truly make you successful both personally and professionally.
So what were your interests from the time that you were 10, and were you able to achieve those dreams, or did the circumstances prevent you from achieving something that you wanted to achieve?
Well, I've modified a lot in life in terms of taking what I wanted to do and kind of do similar things just in a different manner.
So what did you want to do?
Well, originally when I was probably 10 years old, okay, now that was the midst of the space program, everybody wanted to be an astronaut. Okay? So fine, with the disability, you can't maybe not be an astronaut, but you could get involved in science, technology, those things that would push the envelope. And really, it's at the scientific and research end. That's where all the important impact is done.
Right, and it's almost like the astronaut is the symbol of the science program, but
Yes.
but yet the grunt work, if I can call it that, is in the background.
And it all has to do with, the engineering principles, the design principles, everything, that supports those people who are put out at the edge of the frontier.
Right.
So the edge of my frontier just happened to be, at that time, disability. Okay, so I kind of channeled my energies towards getting involved, understanding a bit about the various disability laws that were coming onto the books at that time for, empowering disabled students, getting them out of institutions into both the social setting and to the classroom settings.
So tell us how you went about that and
Well,
what your success was?
I was involved at the state level with the Department of Education. They had student advisory councils. and we were involved with both Section 504 and Chapter 766, which allowed access to educational facilities for the disabled.
And so, because I'm unfamiliar,
And
would that be ramps? Would that be physical accoutrements? Okay.
Part of it is physical, a lot of it is attitudinal.
Okay.
Okay, because remember, historically the disabled were, put into, by and large, for less of a better word, an institution.
Institutionalized, yes.
Okay, I went to the Massachusetts Hospital School, which was down in Canton, Mass. That's where I spent my 5th through 12th grade down there, and they were a rehab facility with a full K through 12 educational component. At that time, it was run by the state, and it was a phenomenal. Class sizes were small. I had a graduating class of 8. I benefited from that. I would have liked to have been in the community at that time in the mid-'70s, but schools were not accessible at the time. We didn't qualify for any support services because income was a tremendous impetus to kind of cutting services off. So if you were poor and disabled, there were a whole host of services you could take advantage of. But if your parents worked and you just happened to be disabled, those services weren't available.
Okay.
I have reams and reams of rejection letters saying, sorry, yeah, we see you are disabled, but you make too much money.
Just take me back for a moment to your graduating class. Were those 8 individuals, were they all on wheels, or were they, was it?
At the high school level, it was a combination, cerebral palsy. One guy had a stroke that paralyzed 3/4 of his body. A lot of muscular dystrophy students. I'm probably, the last time I knew, there were only maybe myself and 1 or 2 other people from my graduating class that's still alive.
Okay, because I was going to ask you, that obviously raised your sensitivity, but I wondered if you bonded with those individuals and you maintained ties.
I maintained ties probably throughout my college years, but a lot of my classmates passed before I even graduated high school.
Wow.
So
and did that have that effect?
That impacts when you see people as young as 5 and 6 years of age. You're talking to them one day, and the next day they're gone. And sometimes I had a very good friend of mine, a roommate, who passed during the night, and I was with him, because we would always watch hockey games together. So we were both adamant Bruins fans, and that, it leaves a mark. It makes you appreciate the life that you have so much more because you understand that in an instant things can change.
And how old were you when that happened?
The disability or the...
No, that incident.
Oh,
with
probably 15, 16 years old.
Oh my gosh. So again, at a very young age, you were
forced to grow up.
You were being exposed to things that usually minors are protected from.
Sure.
Until the appropriate time.
Right. And you have to have the right attitude for it. The attitude has to be a never give up attitude.
Absolutely. So sensitivity-wise, that made you aware of differences, but also.
Well, I was aware. My first day on the campus, and I went down to the dining hall, and there was. So I'm 10 at the time. So there was a guy. There are many different peoples in wheelchairs, walkers, and so forth. But there's a guy sitting and eating. He has no arms. He's just using his feet. And I had to stop and look because I was amazed. I had never seen anything like that before.
And you probably internalized all of that because you couldn't say to anyone, hey, look at that guy, look what he's doing.
And you can't process all of the changes at once. But it's like anything else. You make friends, you hang around with people, you realize it doesn't matter outwardly appearance or ability, disability, or any combination. It's really what concepts you carry with you, what ideas, what beliefs make you the person that you are.
So bring us now through your college days, more up to the present, because I'm sure that you have experienced discrimination and stigmatization because you are in in a chair?
Well, when I was in college, actually, out of high school, I worked at the Park Service for a couple of summers as a park ranger, Boston
Really?
National Historic Park interpreter. I was into history, so I studied Boston history very deeply, especially geographical and architectural history. So I would actually, my job involved going through the entire level from the Freedom Trail of Charlestown to downtown Boston, both answering questions, but we were also giving lectures. And I remember after traveling the Freedom Trail one day, an old woman came up to me and said, "Well, what can you do?" You know, it kind of, I guess she thought I was a policeman because, you know, we have what looked like a state police uniform. It was just green and gray. And I said, well, a lot more, because I can vocalize my thoughts in a more cognizant manner than what you're vocalizing presently. And she was just taken aback.
Wow.
You know, and then of course you get those people who, not to pounce on the religious side of things, but Jesus will make you rise up and
or
walk,
God
my
bless
son.
you.
Yeah. I said, well, look, can you get him here at 5:30? I want to go dancing.
Do you think that it was enlightening for the time for you to be hired for that? You know, I'm just curious.
I never let it, in an interview situation, when I go in, I always make sure that I control the situation and I steer the conversation so that it benefits me.
Okay.
I have a lot to offer, a very quick wit and a very deep knowledge on several diverse subjects.
On many.
Okay.
If I can say that.
So it's just a matter of, when you come in, you have to be able to kind of size up a room, all right, and then say, okay, this is how I'm going to approach things. That comes with a lot of practice. There are times you're going to fail.
Right.
But the only way that we grow is we learn from failure.
Absolutely.
And, you know, move forward.
Absolutely.
Doors will be closed in your face, but doors will also be opened. And it's your job to get more doors open than slammed.
So give us an example of a door opening that maybe you coveted or you didn't know that you were interested in this, and an example of a door closing that surprised or.
Well, I'm never surprised. I mean, I've interviewed for jobs, and it was funny. I interviewed for a job at one company in a management position, okay, because I had always been, you know, the principal specialist or, you know, the consultant doing, you know, work, but yet never had the opportunity to manage groups, even though I knew I could do it and I knew I could do it very well. So I went in, and I was working at the same company, and I went in for the position and, you know, ended up not getting the management position, and I asked why, and it was because, well, we utilize a certain software program and you don't know it. Yeah, but that software program is, you know, 15% of the time, and it, you know, it doesn't, when it comes to technology, give me an hour.
Right.
I can know the system better than the programmer who designed it.
So are you in essence saying you think that was just that was an excuse, that was a cop out, they didn't want it, they didn't want you for the position?
I think that, for lack of a better word, that's probably what it is. And I said, okay, fine. But they were offshored shortly after that. So in one respect, that's good. You know, my job wasn't transitioned to India.
Right, that's true.
Okay. I spent probably 22 years in financial services, both from a customer service standpoint. I worked for the corporate legal division for a while as a chief IT negotiator, did all the IT contracts. And then as a designer of software systems for that group, to monitoring when contracts will expire and so forth. That's what got me into the technical side of the software development side, where I moved over after that. After 22 years with the same company, though, one of our larger clients left, so I was laid off, you know. And I said, okay, I've got a core skill set. I need to apply that to other industries. And so I got a year's compensation, I remember, because I had been with the company for so long. Took 6 months off, went out, interviewed. After 3 times, got the job, doubled my salary in a business that was unrelated to what I had been involved with for the last 20 some odd years, but because the skill sets that I had were readily transferable.
Right.
It was quite
Right.
easy to fill.
Right. So I take that as a success, that almost like you're rising above the visual of you in a chair. It didn't matter. It didn't matter that you were on wheels. It mattered that you had the skill set. But I'm just wondering if sometimes it's difficult to get in the door, or to get, I mean, figuratively and literally in the door, and to get beyond the stereotype of,
Well,
you're a certain.
part of it is controlling the conversation. You always, before you go into a situation, I believe in doing a tremendous amount of background work, especially with employers. Okay, to know, okay, what's their philosophy? Where's the company heading? What have they done? What are their successes? What are their minor failures? Okay, and when I go into that situation, I try to use the fishbowl approach. Look at it from the outside. Separate yourself. What do you have that they may not want, or how do you battle the perceptional basis? And the best way to approach that really is to you have to use concepts to maintain control of the discussion. And it's a matter of, the skills that you bring to the table. It's a matter of using those skills and showing the employer that you can utilize that to benefit their firm, their department.
And you're very eloquent, and I understand that. I'm just wondering if, well, let me just ask the question this way. Do you disclose in advance before you send in your resume? And do you disclose that you are on wheels, or do you not, and why? And if you do disclose, do you not get the interview, or are the questions, if you do get the interview, such that, well, how are you going to get in and out of the building? Are you going to need assistance?
Well,
So
thank goodness, since the 90s with the ADA and so forth.
So you can loop the ADA in here.
The architectural barriers have, for a majority of businesses, larger businesses, more I would say above the mom and pop level, are in such a way now that they are probably 90% of the businesses out there, larger businesses, more than 2,500 employees, are accessible.
Okay. And that's from the parking lot all the way to the building.
To the building. Now, you may have to, as an employee, you may have to go in there and jog their memory on, say, well, yeah, you've got accessible spaces in the parking lot, but all they are a regular space, that's been tagged like that. They need to be a certain width. There needs to be so much feet between spaces and so forth. Things like that.
Okay. Now, just because this happened to me the other day, there is a wheelchair ramp. You, on the exterior of a building, you wheel yourself up the wheelchair ramp. At the top of the ramp is the garbage can. Or beyond the garbage can, there is a locked door. Have you had similar experiences?
I have had, thankfully, I'm big enough and strong enough, and the wheelchair is powerful enough. If there's something blocking my way,
you're going to mow it down.
I'm going to pick it up and move it.
Okay.
Okay, I am going to pick it up and move it. And then when I get in there, when I get into the building, it's a matter of notifying people and saying, hey, you really should move that. Case in point, what happened to me, Home Depot on Gold Star Boulevard. They have a series of handicapped spaces near the walkway and near the entrance of the building. Well, one of them, they decided to store one of their lifts in. So I took a picture of it, and I went in and I said, guys, I spoke to the management in there and I said, you really ought to move this. It's in a handicap spot, which is illegal. And a van can't get in there, a wheelchair can't get in there. Your other handicap spots are all taken. I said, this is a potential violation that could cost you money. I would suggest that you rethink your strategy about where you're storing your equipment.
And what was the response to that?
They kind of yesed me to death. I waited another 15 minutes, and nothing happened. I came back that evening. It was still the same way. So I called the city, and they said, look, it's private. We can't do anything about it. So I got that off to the Architectural Access Board and said, it's not going to fly, so it's in their hands right now.
So this is relatively recent then that this
within
happened?
the past 6 weeks, yeah.
Okay, all right. But if I can just glean from what you said, you knew what to do. You knew.
I'm stubborn, so that's.
Well, I think that's taking control as well. It's not feeling overwhelmed, and it's not going away sniveling. It's this. In essence, I know my rights. This is how I'm going to proceed.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever encountered the locked door at the top of a ramp?
I've encountered locked doors.
All your life.
In theaters.
In theaters?
In theaters. I was, in college, okay? I used to play in the orchestra pit. That was manual wheelchair time now, not electric wheelchair time. I played alto saxophone with both the jazz band and the college orchestra. And we were playing at a hall one night, and they said, oh yeah, the accessible entrance, they told me beforehand because I asked about it, is at the side. It's the stage entrance door. That was locked. Couldn't get anybody's attention. So I took my saxophone out and started playing very loud. I started playing jazz riffs very loud. About 20 minutes later, somebody came by and opened the door.
Wow. And did they say, great concert, thank you, Joe?
But, you have to garner attention like that. You have to be creative on how you approach these
And have
things.
a sense of humor, I think, as well.
A sense of humor helps.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, if you're all serious all the time, people don't, that gets to be a little too much.
And I think when you were describing earlier your youth and your observations of your compatriots, you probably realized I'm going to go a lot further if I take the time to explain to people what I need and ask for help or not if that's appropriate, and not have a chip on my shoulder and not be hostile, because obviously the treatment would be different if you were.
It is, there's only, so far you can go with a hostile attitude or even, just by plain, forget it, I'm going to give up. This is the worst thing in the world. So you have to modify that and be willing to accept small steps, okay, small improvements initially. If we just wanted the all-inclusive improvement, the ADA never would have happened. Okay, that had to come through a series of small legislative steps, a lot of pressure. It took a tremendous amount of time.
Can you just detail that very briefly? It just, again,
well,
I know you're very knowledgeable.
It started, and I don't have all the information available, with 504 and 766. Then it's a matter of the various groups coming together across the country to demand for better access not only in schools but in businesses. I remember taking part in a picket of downtown Canton because the Mass Hospital School was located in Canton, Mass. At the time, during the 50s and all the way forward, the best thing was, with the institutions, put them out in the country somewhere so that, the people are not seen, not heard, in essence.
And that was why the school was located in
That's
Canton?
why the school was located. You had some places like the Industrialized School, which was a commuter school in Boston for disabled individuals. Okay, and you had this other school, Mass Hospital School, which was more of a residence setting, people who needed more acute medical care, more rehab, and so forth. It was a great school, a great campus, somewhat limiting in that once you're on campus, you're physically on campus.
Right, and
Okay.
you weren't rubbing elbows with mainstream
Well,
society.
the staff, the
Right.
teachers, but that was it. So it all tended to be around medical shop talk, doctors, nurses, fellow residents. You still had your own interests. Of course, we had a sports program down there, so I took part in wheelchair basketball and
I was going to
hockey.
say adaptive sports. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, and the thing was, we had bricks on the walls, so they had to put up mattresses to keep people from getting slammed, especially during hockey, because we would check each other severely.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So, yeah, I had and I had a lot of archery. I had a full high school type of activities.
So when you were plucked, well, really weren't plucked. When you transitioned to Salem State, you were in more of a real world environment.
I was more in a real world environment, but
Was that a shock?
Not really,
No?
not
Okay.
really, because I had lived in an apartment complex my junior and senior year on campus.
Okay.
The first year of college, being a resident in a dorm, that was old hat to me. It was just, like high school again.
Right. Because you had
Okay,
lived.
so there, 36. There was a matter of just getting used to how things would be different, getting used to the campus, more or less, accessibility-wise.
Well, thank you, Joe, for a very enlightening discussion, and thank you for being willing to share. I'm attorney Liz Myska, your trusted legal advisor. Please feel free to contact me at 508-753-7681 or email me at Myska, MYSKA, @gmail.com. Thank you.
Please note that the information provided in this show is not a substitute for consulting with an experienced local attorney and receiving counsel based on the facts and circumstances of a particular transaction. To contact Lizbeth, email her at lisbeth@elizabethlmyska.com or call her office at 508-753-7681. We're online at connectingthedots.lawyer. Executive producers, Lizbeth Myska and Jack Peacock. Producers, John Medberry and Bill Hamilton. A production of Elizabeth L. Myska, JD, LLM, in association with Compliments.